there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today we are going to unbox and swatch and then review this set of Paul Rubens Gucai watercolor paint tube set. Is there 36 vibrant colors? Oh my gosh, I might need to get another palette if that. I grabbed a palette to put this stuff in, and I'm thinking that I may have not grabbed a good size. I'm not good at unboxing things live on camera because now I'm like, look at that. I kind of messed up that bubble wrap, and I saved my bubble wrap for like packaging. Is there 36? I was thinking there was 24. Let's take a look. So I reviewed the metallic set of Gucai paints, and they're, I guess, more like a traditional Chinese paint. So probably meant to be on like rice paper or masa paper or, you know, something a little bit more porous. This is a pretty big box. Let's see if we can look on my grid here. This is, that's about 12 inches by 9 inches, 9 by 12. All right, it's got a paper sleeve. Set that aside, and this is really nice, pretty black and silver packaging. Is that all on screen? Okay, let's see. How many are in here? I was thinking it's 24, but oh, we've got a brochure that has a color swatch. All of that is in Chinese. They do have those, maybe not all those photos, but some of those photos on the Amazon listing. So I think this is, I think it's 24, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Yeah, 24. Okay, so we got 24 colors. Oh, that's pretty. Let's see what sort of information. Let's get something with a little more contrast. So we've got a black tube. It feels like it's a metal tube. It says Chinese painting pigments, 12 ml. It looks like there's a string of stars, which looks like it's probably a lightfast rating. Let me see if there's, I might have to do a little research. They all seem to have 5 stars here. Let me find something that might be fugitive like a red. Does that have fewer? They all seem to have 5 stars. So I'm going to have to look into that. Like I said, I'm just unboxing it now. I want to put it in a palette so it can dry down so we can see if it's going to get all kind of chalky and yucky or what it's going to do. And you know, let's open these up and see. Now, should I go in the order they put them in? I don't think so. I think I want to go. Actually, I could go this way. I'm just trying to see if I could, if there's a way I could go and have it a little bit more. You know what? There we go. Let's put this in order, shall we? So I like to start with, sometimes I start with yellows, but generally I'll start with like the reds. So I'll do my cooler reds first. I'm trying to see if there's an English name on these. Shanghai Owen Art Materials. They're the Paul Rubens people. They also make those, the Pretty Excellent and the Owen watercolors that have been pretty good deals. Yeah, I don't see a name in English on these, so I'm just going to look at them and try to put them in kind of spectrum order. That looks like a brown, so I'm going to keep my earth tones. Let me peek at that one. That one looks like more of a yellow ochre. It's kind of more of a brown, so I'm actually going to put those earth tones together. That looks like a nice yellow. That looks like almost like a, oh no, oh shoot, that's a yellow. I don't smell anything. Oh, that's good. I was worried that these might be kind of stinky. I'll put the white over there for now. It looks like there's a gold. I wonder if there's a silver. That looks like it's probably a black. All right, let's go with our greens and then our blues that are green leaning. Oh gosh, it's kind of hard to tell, to be honest, whether the which way the blues are leaning. And then we'll do purple at the end. Okay, I'm going to put them in this palette. And I am going to, oh, that's a pretty color. I don't want to put a ton out, but I want to put enough out that I'll be able to see if it's going to crack or not. Oh, I just realized that it's going to be difficult to refill these because it's going to be hard to tell what color I had. Now this, oh, you know what? That one looks quite, still not smelling anything. I'm relieved. I was worried that these were going to smell. For some reason, I'm thinking I saw a review on like Kim Crick's channel a few, like maybe 6 months ago. She had got her hands on these paints, probably from AliExpress or something, and I could have sworn that there was some issues, but maybe I'm thinking of something else. Oh gosh, that's pretty. That looks like a quin coral. I am going to be really careful to put these back in the packaging in the same order that I squeeze them out, though, so that if I need to refill, then I'll be able to do that. This color's a little stiff. This almost is like oh, I don't even know. It's more earthy than I would have thought. I probably would have kept that with the earth tones. This is just a $2 palette from Ocean State Job Lot, so I mean, I'm not like, I want to use something small like this because I wasn't married. Oh no! Oh, how did I do that? Okay, I've got to get that out of there. I'm just gonna use, oh, I got a palette knife. Okay. And you know what? I'm not going to salvage it because I got both of the colors on there, so that's going to give me inaccurate results. So I'm just going to wipe my palette knife right off on a rag because that's not going to be good. Alright, so now we're going to go to this one. This one, is there, oh yeah, there's some separation here. See that? Look at that. It almost seems like there's an air bubble and separation. So I can either wipe that out or I could stir it into the paint. Let's just see how much. I'm going to stir it in because this tube feels a little stiff. It feels like it's, yeah, this one's weird. I'm going to get my tube wringer out because that's not, that is not coming out very easily. But I always keep my tube wringer handy because once I get to like once I start to get down in a tube and I'm like kind of flattening it out, then I like to use a tube wringer to get out any of that extra paint before it starts to harden. And this is how somebody was asking me how to use a tube wringer. So you put the end in between the teeth and you have it facing away from you and you hold these little wings together because that will open, you open them up. And then I am just going to crank it through. Wowzer, this one is a little challenging. Wow, that's really stiff. I'm going to stir that with a toothpick before and then you see how flat that is? Can you see how flat that is? Look at that. So it's a really great way, a very cost-effective way to make sure you don't lose paint. I'm gonna clean off this palette knife and just kind of stir it up. I'm gonna do that right now. I'll show you. I'll just show you how I do it. Because then people will be like, "How did you do that?" Even though it seems like it's something that, well, I'm just stirring it in. I'm just stirring in the binder. Toothpick would be fine, but I already had this out, so I'm just gonna use that. It's a watercolor, so I'm not too worried about it not like being fine. And I have a lot better time controlling and using paints once I've let them dry down. So that's another reason I want to let them dry down. There we go. I think that'll be fine. Scrape the edge. Alright, I think that's going to be alright. Okay, so I think because this is a bigger well, I'm going to use this yellow. I know it's going to be a color I use more because this is the only real bright yellow I have. And I wouldn't even say it's a lemon. It's almost like a neutral yellow. This guy, I'm just going to put this kind of right here because binder separation. That's a bummer. Yeah, we got some binder separation issue on that one. So 2 so far. You can keep track. You can keep track at home with me. We got 2 binder separation issues. All right, I'm just going to put them in categories here. I'm wondering if I want to do my other earth tones there. I'm not sure. Earth tones are ones that I use quite a bit, so I might need larger wells for those. I'll start out with over here. Oh, this looks like a nice phthalo green. That's okay to be in a big container because I'll mix that with other greens to get my earthier greens. And I can always put more in, so you don't need to be stingy. Oh, this is pretty. This is kind of like a pastel seafoam green. That's really fun if you're painting rust. Just kind of keep these in order. Now this one also looks like it might be kind of that color. These look quite opaque, which is typical with Chinese colors. No smell though, guys. I was really concerned that I was going to have some sort of, be kind of overpowered with smell. Like the Marie's colors, I found those to be very, very strong smelling. And even the camel watercolors out of India, those were very strong smelling when I first squeezed them out, but then they went fine. Now that is extremely liquid. Look at that. The consistencies are different between colors. That's not like a red flag to me because different pigments have different weights to them. But it is kind of interesting in a Chinese color set where it seems like in the past where I've used Chinese colors, they're more uniform. That's kind of a pretty cerulean blue. I don't know. I wonder if there's pigment information anywhere online. It'd be interesting to see what kind of pigment that is. If it's a phthalo blue and white or if it's an actual cobalt-based cerulean. Let's see how this one looks. That looks very similar, but paler. And it's a little bit stiffer. Probably didn't need both of those on the palette, but we're going to try them all out and see. All right, so I got 3 blues here. Hopefully one of them is an ultramarine. And if one of them looks like an ultramarine, oh, I've got some binder separation. Yep, that kind of looks like an ultramarine. Yeah, it does. I'm gonna put that. I want that one in a big well because I use ultramarine more than any other color on my palette. That's really vibrant. It's almost like a, yeah, like an ultramarine or cobalt. So I think I'll put this one. Let's see, how many more do I have to get? I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm gonna put this one here. That's pretty. That's kind of almost like a periwinkle, so it's closer to purple, so that was actually better that I ended up swapping those two. And this purple I'm going to put here, just a little dab. All right. Now, I've already done that one, and I've got, let's see, black and white. I'm probably not going to use too much of those, so I think I'll do them here. And, well, I'm not going to put too much there just because I don't think I'll use it and I don't want to waste it. Let's see, do I want to do white in that same one, or I could do white in the opposite corner here? We'll do white right there. All right, and I've got 3 more colors. I don't really want to put anything over here because I've got those brush holes there. Not that I ever use them for that, but I'm afraid it might leak. Looks like I've probably got like a burnt umber and a burnt sienna. So let's see, this one looks like a burnt umber. This one looks like a burnt sienna. Or a, yeah, like a burnt sienna or maybe a red oxide. I bet it was PR 101. And then here we have gold. Now where should I put gold? Maybe I'll put it right here because I don't think I'm going to use many of those colors, so I think I'm safe to... Oh wow. Sadly there's binder separation, but that's a pretty color. Alright, look at that. It's really drippy. You know, I probably should have put this in a... Well, you don't know. You don't know until you squeeze stuff out, but because that's so drippy. All right, so let's look at our palette here and see what we have. Most of the consistencies were fine, but we had some binder separation there. I think that was a majority of it. So now I'm gonna let it dry. We're gonna let it dry, and then you know what? Maybe I'll prepare a swatch card. We can swatch them now. And then I can actually kind of pat things down with a brush and get everything leveled out a little bit. Let's do that. But I want to prepare a card so that you don't have to watch me do that. Be right back. Okay, I made my swatch card. I use a waffle flower stamps, and I've got 2 rows of 12, just like my storage here. So my plan is to put the tubes back in here and then swatch them the way they're laid out in my storage thing here. So if I look at my swatch, maybe I'm putting together another palette, I'll know exactly where each one of these are, since there is no name on these. So I'm gonna put all these back just the way they are in my palette. So the first 10 is it 8? The first 8 will be easy because they're kind of in that order. Oops, why didn't I put that cap on correctly? Goodness. And then I'm going to do the greens and blues. So okay, we kind of got warm color, cool color. And then once I figure out where white's going to go, then I'm going to probably color in more of that. I might color in the whole block with that black marker just so I can see opacity. Actually, it's pretty well balanced with warm color and cool color. And then, so for the top row, let's see, I've got 4 things up there and I have 4 colors. So I'll do black, white, and then gold, that ochre color, and the gold. And that way it'll be really easy. See, it'll be really easy for me to tell. And then down here, I'll do burnt umber, then the burnt sienna. And I'm just going to call them names that I'm used to calling them, like I would be used with them normal names. Does that make sense? Like, you know, normal Western colored names, I would say. So I know the white's going to end up right there. So I'm going to go ahead and color that in with my marker. And I want to do that so it's got time to dry. So I'll do it right now. Okay, grab my jars of water here, and I'll use I've got 2 right here. I'm going to use the blue one for dirty, the clear one for clean. And let's put my little swatch right there. Oh, we've got so much to look at. Would it be better for me to zoom in, you think? Why don't we zoom in a little bit? I feel like that's too far away. And hopefully with the grid on my mat, it won't go out of focus for me. Let's try to keep all those colors. Boy, this is an awkward, it's an awkward layout of a palette. But that's all right. I'm afraid if I turn it, I'm going to get confused. So I'm looking at the box that same, I guess I'd say aspect ratio. So let me just grab a small round, well, not small, but like a number 8 round. Take some clear water, and I am going to, I'm going to wet the block. Now let's see how they disperse. And we're going to start off with this red. And because it's fresh from the tube, I'm just going to kind of make sure I don't get too much. That looks lovely. And I am going to add this up here. Now these paints, I believe, are about $39.99. I think that's what they're going for. Not a lot of movement here. Let me clean my brush and try bringing it down a little bit. Definitely not a lot of movement, so maybe, well, you know, that's probably typical for a Chinese color because they're generally used more thickly on a porous paper, so like it running is not like the, you know, is not the goal. Like you kind of want it to sit on the paper and not move around too much. We'll let that one. I need to have a rag handy for blotting. And we'll try this color, kind of a pretty Bordeaux color. And the reason I draw the line is just to check transparency, because I know some of these are going to be opaque. Just I could tell by looking at them. I bet they'll dry a little duller too. I feel like they're already a little bit duller on my swatch than on, no, what a few of these, than on the, than in the palette. Be careful not to get in the white when I'm in this pan. Oh, that's a pretty color. Kind of like a watermelon isn't it? That's pretty. After it's all dry, I'll do a glaze. I'll probably do that off camera because it'll be kind of boring. Now I'll go into this pretty color that looks kind of corally, and I do want to kind of, it almost looks a little bit chunky or gritty. I don't think it is. I think it's just it got a little firm in the tube. Now see, that one's got some movement to it. I didn't do a very thorough job at wetting that block. So what usually makes the paint move is the addition of oxgall or synthetic oxgall, which is a type of detergent. Oh goodness, now I'm getting to the, yeah, that one's moving. That one moves pretty well. So that might be something you would take a note of. If you were to buy this set, you might make a little note on your swatch or just remember it. I'm going to skip that next one because I want to let that little area dry. And I'll go into this guy. Kind of like a burnt orange color. It's kind of pretty. It's kind of like a pumpkin-y color. All right, let's wet the next block. Thank goodness there's only 24 of these. This was the one that we had some big binder separation, so I want to make sure I've got I don't have any chunks on my brush. That one's looking quite opaque on my black bristle brush here. Now, since these are a classical paint, Chinese paint, I think if we're going to find that they don't move very much and they're going to be better suited to like rice paper. But it doesn't mean you can't use them on other things. But if you can kind of already see some sediment on like that red and on that yellow, you know, you're not going to get the luminosity if your paint is opaque. It doesn't mean that opaque paint is bad. It just means that that's, you know, you're not going to get what you might want. But they'll be easier to control because they won't absorb so quickly into rice papers and other things. I think I'm going to use these on some masa paper, which is this really cool paper that's sized on one side. And it's almost got this like waxy coating on it, and you wet it and you crinkle it up and then you paint on it and you get this almost like batik look. It's really pretty. And we're going to try some of this black here. And it'll be hard to tell how much coverage this has until it dries. I'm just going to rinse my brush and try to pull that color down a little bit. This is usually I'm doing this sort of stuff off camera. We'll have like a podcast on or something. That's kind of pretty. That might be pretty in like a sky or something. And then we'll do the white. I don't want to add too much water to the white because let's see what we can get anyways for an opacity. Well, boy, that's looking pretty opaque right there. Hey, look at that. That's not too bad. I'll add a little bit of water just to wash it out, and we can see how it would go in like a wet wash, because you might want to mix that and create some pastels. I feel like I got too much water there. Now, right now, I'm starting to smell a little bit of that chemical odor that some China colors have. So something to note, to be aware of. Now let's see, we're going to also do the ochre color and the gold. Now remember we had some binder separation with this one. Kind of splooped out on us. That one is quite opaque. It's not like a yellow ochre though. It's definitely more green. Like it's got like a bit of a green undertone. It's not that fresh, warm yellow ochre or raw sienna even. It's quite milky. Interesting addition. Interesting choice. And with the gold, I'm also going to use that full strength because if you're using metallics, you generally are wanting it to sit on top of the paper and reflect. And I'm stirring it up because we had that binder separation issue. I probably would recommend that if you get this set that you don't squirt the white or the gold out, that you leave them in the pans. Now I bet you can mix this with another color and get some interesting effects. I bet that would be really pretty. So it's also something you might want to consider using it as a mixative. In fact, let me see if I can scrape some of that off my brush so I don't waste it. It's a pretty gold. It's not too brassy. It's a nice gold. And it seems to be pretty opaque, but we'll know for sure once that swatch dries. So now we're going down here to the cool colors. We're going to use this green. This is kind of like a, gosh, I thought it was a phthalo green, and it might be, but it doesn't seem as acidic as a phthalo green. A phthalo green yellow shade maybe, like a PG 36 if I had to guess. But it's not as unnatural as some of the phthalo greens that I've seen. That definitely could be mixed with a little bit of that orange or yellow, and you get a really nice natural green that way. This kind of a seafoam color, which is great for doing patina, like rusty copper, things like that. Or not rusty copper, but like, the patina. It is very opaque. Just going to drag that down with a little bit of water. That's going to be pretty on rice paper. Look how opaque that is. That's almost like a gouache. Don't mind my arm. I had to give blood the other day. I have such a bruise. Oh. It didn't show up till like the day after. And I'm like one of these spleeny people. They're like, I can't even look. It's like, it's like if I know it's coming, I will just tense up. Like my veins will shrivel up. Huh, that's an interesting color. I honestly think that if you mix those two colors together, you would get that color. I don't know why that's there. But whatever. Convenience probably. And I've got to fully confess that I don't know much about Chinese brush painting. I've done some exercises, just for fun. Like I have a book that's like about Chinese brush painting, like I think like birds and insects or something like that. And it's fun, but I really, I am definitely not a practicer of it. I am not that patient. I just kind of, I like to do it every once in a while though, because it helps you achieve a looseness, an economy of brush strokes. You don't have to, you can pare it down to less. I had a little bit of water there first. Now this one was very thin. This seems to be like a Prussian blue, or like that almost looks like an indigo. I wouldn't even say it looks like a Prussian blue. This one looks more like a Prussian blue because it's not as acidic as a phthalo blue. Drag it down with some water. Not a lot of spread with these, except for that one red. There hasn't been a lot of spread. So whether you like that or not, that's up to you. Now these two colors are definitely going to be opaque. Let's just see how they go without any water on the paper. Yeah, very opaque. Yeah, I really don't think these are going to be the best for Western style watercolor painting on watercolor paper. But we'll give it a try. I mean, I've been wrong before, and that's a reason why I do my review portion after I've used them, because, you can't really trust a swatch being your final assessment of anything. That one's also very opaque. So the thing I'm also noticing is like these colors are not terribly clean. Because like, I mean, you can have an opaque color that still seems pretty clean. This one looks like it's got a blue, a yellow, a white, and maybe even a little bit of a black. That one looks like it has a little bit of black in it. So once you get opaque colors and you're getting into multiple mixes, and I can't tell you for sure what they're made out of because there's no pigment information, you definitely run into the making mud phase a little bit quicker. That said, these are probably meant to be convenient, so you're not mixing them too much. So now we have the ultramarine blue. I hope this is good because I love this color. Oh, that's a nice one. Or it could be a cobalt, but that's really, I think as far as saturation goes, this is probably the most saturated color. The saturated is how bright or dull a color is. So like brown would be like completely desaturated orange. And, then you got bright, the fully saturation would be like an orange color, like the fruity orange. It'd be like that color. So that's a nice ultramarine. I like that. Then we have this almost Copenhagen blue here. Looks, oh, you know, it's not as opaque as it looks. It's also not very strong. But you know what, I might just have too much water on my brush. Let me blot that off and grab some a little thicker. I also have some water on that swatch. Yeah, it's still not a super strong color. It's kind of muted. And now we've got that violet, which looks like it's going to be very strong because it almost looks black in the palette. These little palettes are nice. If you have an Ocean State job lot near you, these are really nice because if you're like a teacher and you want to just buy a few tubes of paint and you want to disperse it out for your students, these palettes are only $2, and they will, if you're doing a class, they are gonna do the trick. And that one seems like it's dispersing a little bit better. Generally, the more transparent your color is too, the more it's going to disperse. Just because the pigment particles are smaller, they can be carried by the water a little bit better. And then we've got our burnt sienna and our burnt umber. And I'm just going in the order that I put the paints away. Okay, is that on camera? Move that over a little bit. Burnt umber is kind of dull looking, to be honest. A little bit of water to that. It's kind of chalky, I'm not going to lie. And then we'll do the burnt sienna, which also looks kind of opaque. I think that's or it might be like a red iron oxide. Oh, actually though, that one surprised me. This one is much more lively than the burnt umber. Okay, oh, we need to go back and do that red that we missed. That was that kind of a muted kind of coral color right here. Almost like a adobe type terracotta clay. It's almost like a southwestern clay type color. Oh, you know, that is actually quite pretty. That's more translucent than I thought it would be. That would be really pretty in like a portrait. That would be a nice portrait color. Okay, I'm gonna let this dry. And then we will come back. Actually, we can just dry it. We can just dry it, why not? I was gonna say we're gonna let this dry, but I'm already gonna let the palette dry and do some paintings before we come back. And generally when I do the paintings, I film them and then I'll release the videos at some other time. I've got a few weeks off this summer, so it's always good to have those little tutorials to pop up during those times when I'm not gonna be around, so that way you guys don't go too long without any little lessons to follow along. You guys to forget about me. I want you guys to forget about me. Actually, I'll probably do a glaze swatch on these too after they're I'll make sure it's fully dry, and then I'll do a glaze swatch. The reason I like to dry the swatches is because sometimes once you dry it, they look more transparent or they look less transparent. And you really don't know until you've dried it to see what you're going to get. And then we can also see the reflectability of that gold. So it's not very reflective, I'm gonna say. It's nice and opaque, but it definitely doesn't have that reflection. It reminds me of the Arteza tube metallic gouache is what that reminds me of. But it does have a really nice opacity to it. If you wanted to do some like outlining of something, like outlining of a flower or stamens on a flower or spots on a goldfish, I think that would be really nice for that. The colors, this color palette is not really speaking to me right now, but you never know. The proof is not in the pudding until you actually have to bake the pudding to get the proof. You know what I mean. So when we come back, we're going to see how it works from dry paint. That will be in a few days. But until then, will be a few days for me, but you guys only have to wait like a couple seconds. So we'll see you. Future Lindsay will see you next. It's still past Lindsay here. I wanted to hop back in because this paint's all fresh. I've been painting with it, and when I'm mixing water in, I can get a whiff of some chemical smell. It is not strong at all, but I just wanted to mention that because it's something that I don't get with many, like, you know, professional watercolors that, actually I don't think I get that with any professional watercolors that like we get from legacy brands. So I just wanted to mention that, but it's not as strong as like the Camel watercolors or the Master's Touch watercolors, which were really strong, but there is a little bit of a odor there. And then I will check again when this is all dry and I work from the dry paint. I also wanted you to see the Glaze Swatch. They glaze pretty well. The only place I see a shiny spot, which sometimes you get shiny spots on glazes, was here on this color I'd say is like a Prussian blue, where it was really thick. I think I'd probably put it on thicker than you would, so I don't think it's going to be an issue. I don't think shiny spots are going to be an issue here. There wasn't any binder separation in that one, so... and the ones that did have binder separation, I'm not seeing any shiny spots. The glazes are quite opaque on most of these colors, so if we look through to these, hopefully the camera will focus on my hands. The first swatch is pretty translucent. The second one, in the glaze, it's actually fairly opaque. The third one is pretty translucent. The fourth one is very opaque. The fifth one is very opaque. The sixth one is very opaque. The seventh one is very opaque. That's right there. The eighth one is semi-opaque. The black is very opaque. The white is very opaque. The golden color here, this weird kind of, I don't want to say green gold because it's not like, green gold is a color, like an actual name for a color that is very transparent, but that's very opaque, whatever that color is. The gold is very opaque, but I think you'd want the gold to be very opaque. This green, I don't think that's very opaque. I think it's just the amount I used in that glaze is just very dark valued. That kind of seafoamy mint color is very opaque. This next green here is quite opaque as well. Both of the cool blues, the indigo and the Prussian blue, I would say are quite opaque. Actually, almost all the blues are very opaque in glazes. So the thing you want to keep in mind is when you're mixing colors, opaque colors tend to want to go to mud, so you're going to have to be careful not to get mud when you're mixing in those colors. The purple is very dark when you use it really thick, but I don't think it's opaque. I think it's transparent. Just for how dark it is there, I think it's pretty transparent. I just used it very thickly. The browns are very opaque, which I think is going to make for some uninteresting earth tones. But like I said, we don't know until we actually paint with them. I just wanted to give you that information while it was fresh in my mind, and also just make a note of the smell, which, like, I'm sitting up straight, so my face is about 16 inches away from the paint. I don't smell a thing. But if I put my face right in there, I can smell it. And I know some people are really sensitive to any sort of chemical smells. So I just wanted to mention that. All right. Future Lindsay will see you in the future. Well, in like 5 seconds. Okay? All right. I have been painting with these all week, and I've done quite a few little paintings, which I'm going to show you. And I'm ready to give these paints a full review. So just to refresh your memory, what they look like. We had this beautiful black and silver box. Inside, this is the swatch sheet we made at the beginning of the video. We have our brochure in Chinese. We've got our foam liner, and then we've got all of our beautiful paints, very lovingly packaged in the sturdy chipboard box. Okay, Paul Rubens always does a good job with their packaging, but did the paints live up to the packaging? That's what we're going to find out. All right, so I did a bunch of paintings. First thing I want to show you again is our swatch that we did, and I'll also show you the palette that we squeezed out on the last portion of the video. I have used a lot of the paints. You can see they dried down fine, really. I just was using them, so some of them are a little damp. A little bit of cracking. But they didn't fall out. I didn't have any issues. Maybe because I didn't let them dry rock hard. I let them dry for a couple days and I started using them. So that could be it. But like that, I don't think I used that color much at all. And it didn't crack or anything. So, they worked great, dried down. I had no problems re-wetting them. When I did the swatch and then I did the glazing over, you can see that most of these colors are pretty opaque. So, that's something to be aware of if you want a very transparent watercolor, which is kind of like generally what you want in a traditional watercolor. These probably aren't going to be for you. But I have to say, I had a lot of fun painting with these, and I'm honestly pretty surprised because I almost thought that I was going to be disappointed, especially after seeing Kimberly Quick's review, she does great reviews. I trust everything she says, but I think she might have got a paint set that has some contamination or some bacteria in it because she had the experience of her paints really stinking. She said they smelled like garbage, like, you know, rotting garbage. And what that, and she also said that some of the paints felt pressurized. And I'm wondering if some bacteria got into that paint batch that she got, and, you know, the bacteria grew in the, you know, like if you have got an old can of vegetables on the, you know, that you forgot about in the pantry, and then it can kind of pop and bubble. The can can pop and bubble. I wonder if that's what happened to her paint, because I didn't have that experience at all. I don't notice any odor at all with these where I've been painting from them. And even when they were fresh from the tube, there was only a mild smell that was like, that just smelled like paint. It smelled like, it's probably dextrin. Well, actually, I did hear that these have animal glue in them, like the binder. So like a gelatin base. So that could be it. But it almost smells like to me it smells like the camel paints, but not as strong. Just very faintly of that just kind of paint chemical smell. But nothing that, like, I had to stick my face in it to smell it. So I don't think it would bother anybody, but I just wanted to mention it because there is a very faint odor, not now, but when I first squirted them out, and if I stick my nose right in it. So I did a 3-color mixing little experiment here. I did my warm colors, so I used that warmer red, I used the really warm yellow, and I used the ultramarine blue, and I was able to get kind of a pretty kind of eggplant, aubergine purple, got a really muddy olive that was almost actually gray, and I got a nice orange. And then with the cool, I used that kind of carmine color. I used that neutral yellow. There's no cool yellow in here. That's definitely a neutral yellow, but there's several greens, so it's not really a big deal. I used the Prussian blue, and it got gorgeous greens, a lovely purple, and a nice orange. Of course, you have purple, you have lots of greens. You don't really need to mix with this set, but you can mix. And I didn't get mud. I mixed all three together, and I got a nice lush neutral. It doesn't look like a muddy or chalky neutral. Even though there are opaque colors, I didn't get any feeling of chalkiness to this set. So, so that's good. Now let's look at the artwork. So I did film some of these paintings, and if I did film them, then they will show up on my channel eventually. I really had a fun time with this one, so I might post this one first. But this, I used masa paper, which is a rice paper, since I figured these paints are more of a classical Chinese style paint, that it would be better on a porous paper. So masa paper is it's a paper that's sized on one side. It's got like a coating that you can crumple up and crack before you paint on it, and it gives you a really fun texture. So that's what I did here. If you want a tutorial on this, just let me know. I did film it, so I can pop that up there. I loved how the paints behaved on this. Now, they don't have a lot of flow, so they're not going to move on the paper like a traditional Western watercolor will. So it's great for unsized or low-sized paper, because you're not going to have like that feathering problem that you would have if you like used core watercolor on an unsized paper. It's just kind of like spread like crazy. These don't spread. If you want that whoosh of color when you put your brush down on a wet paper, you're not going to get it with this. So I just want to be completely clear with what you're using here. But you are able to control your brush strokes. This paper is a very absorbent rice paper that I had crumpled up. It was really wet when I painted on it, and I still was able to keep my paint where I wanted it to be. So some of the other unsized papers, or very, not unsized, but very low-sized papers, were these two handmade watercolor papers from Shenzhen, which is an Indian paper maker. And you can see the opacity of these paints. I painted on black. I did use the white for the flowers and some of the red mixed in. Some of that carmine red. I used the greens. I mixed some of that ochre color in there to make them a little more opaque. But you can see how well that stands up on a black paper. And then I used it on some of the Shenzhen white paper, and I played around with that too. It was a lot of fun. And because of these being more Chinese colors, classical Chinese colors rather than Western watercolors, your brush strokes pretty much stay where you put them. You can encourage some bleeding and some flowing, but it's not going to go crazy. So if you have sketchbooks that you're just frustrated with how your watercolors either leak through the paper or spread too much, these are going to be a little thicker. They're definitely more reminiscent of the Gucai Tambi paints than a Western paint. However, these do not have the shine if you lay them thickly. Even I think on like maybe one of my glaze, well, yeah, really thickly, I got a little bit of shine on the Prussian blue, but on the other ones I really didn't get a shine. I mean, the gold is shimmery, but other than that, it stayed very, very matte. So that's kind of, that's, I would say, the big difference between this style of paint and Gansai Tambi. They're both an Eastern style watercolor, and they're both going to be really good on unsized papers, where Western watercolors just have too much flow to them to work well on a unsized paper. And then these two actually were the first things that I did with these paints. I was just kind of fooling around. I did a loose floral here, and this is in the Bohong smooth watercolor paper, which I was really excited to try because I just got a pad of that and I really like that paper. I mean, this is nothing to write home about, but I was really encouraged after doing that because I'm like, these paints are behaving really well. They're really easy to use. I was pleased. And then this one is I spent a little more time, did a little more detailed, a little bit more of a detailed peony study, and I really liked it. This is the cold press surface, the other Bohong block that I got. Very happy with it. I found the colors, they bled together, mingled together nicely. They didn't go crazy, but I was able to control an area, and I didn't get back runs because you're able to keep working the area until you get it the way you want it, which is kind of nice. That said, I think these are easy to use, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend these for a beginner, because for a beginner to watercolor who wants to learn traditional watercolor, traditional Western or English watercolor, because I think the opacity of these, there's too many cheats you can take with these paints that would hinder you learning traditional watercolor, because there's an opaque white. A lot of the colors are opaque in this set, so you can go over darker passages. You don't have to reserve lighter areas. So it could create some bad habits if you do desire to learn traditional watercolor, traditional Western style watercolor. But as far as a fun paint set and quality wise, I'm really pleased with it. I'm really surprised by them. And then this was just a little landscape that I did, and I used the opaque properties of the white to create these little cherry blossom trees. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was so much fun. I'm really surprised at how much I like these paints. I put them in this little temporary palette because I really didn't know if I was going to like them or not. The only color I used up during this was the white, surprisingly. So I typically don't use white much when I'm doing watercolor. I never used to use it, but I have loosened up in my old age, and it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed these paints. So quality-wise, I think they're great. If you want something different to try, go for it. Now, I did a couple other little experiments. This one here, I was playing with that masa paper because I hadn't used masa paper in so long. So I wanted to just give it a try to make sure I remembered how. And you can see that telltale wrinkly section. I was doing the cherry blossom thing. Cherry blossoms on the mind. This was a much more successful version of it on watercolor paper, but I was just playing with that before I did this one. I actually ironed this one so it would be nice and flat. So, you know, you don't be afraid to practice. I mean, it's only a piece of paper, and honestly, I could chop that up and use it for a card background or collage with it or something, so it's really no waste. And then I just also was playing with like a warm triad like I did here. These warm colors I just painted here just to see what they would look like. I kind of like the texture I got. I'll probably die cut this or something for a sentiment. And here I realized that I think that this Shizm paper has a front and a back side because I got a bunch of little speckling where it seemed like the paper wasn't sized. So I think I used the wrong side of it. But anyway, yeah, I was just kind of playing around to see how these paints would move. They blend very well. They just don't flow like crazy. So if you want to get that perfect background with a perfect blend, these are actually really nice for that because you don't... They have a little more viscosity to them, so you can control them a little bit better. I layered up a lot with some of these paintings, and I really, for some reason, didn't get mud. There doesn't seem to be like a chalky binder in here. It seems to be more... now, I don't know what the pigments are or what they're made of because I don't speak Chinese. I guess I probably should have asked asked my rep. She might not necessarily know because she's a salesperson and not a chemist, but... these opaque colors were not chalky. I didn't get a chalky result in here. I'm not seeing little specks of chalk in my background, especially where the darker and the lighter colors mix. I'm not getting that you know, that kind of chalky granulation that you get with like colors that have been stretched with too much white. They're whatever they're made out of, they perform really well. Now, I don't know if these are going to fade. I don't run my own lightfast testing because I live very far from the equator, so I wouldn't trust my results anyway. But I think they're fun. I'm really curious to hear other people's opinions of these, and if you've used them, let me know in the comments below, because I'm pleasantly surprised. I generally don't go for more opaque watercolors, but what I think I might do, because I have a set of 24 Genzai Tambi that's running low. I don't have all these colors in that. They're different 24 colors, but I might refill those big pans once they're empty, because I do like having a large area for a large brush. But you know, this palette worked pretty good, honestly. I would have liked a little bit more mixing space, but I knew I was going to run into that anyway, and I just didn't want to. I didn't want to fill a bigger palette or use up a bunch of pans if I wasn't sure if I was going to like them or not. But I give them thumbs up. I think for the price, for 24 tubes for $39.99, and they should be on a promotion because they're a brand new product. And I think they're supposed to be running a sale from June 6th through the 12th, and I'm planning on posting this video on the 6th. So hopefully, if it's something you're interested in, you've got all the information you need to make a decision about these. I'll just bring back the artwork so you can see them for another minute or so before we say toodaloo. But this was fun. Honestly, I didn't know what to think when I first got these, and I looked up Kimberly Crick's review, because I do trust her reviews. I think, and I'm sure she's completely honest in her reviews. She always is. I was a little concerned, but I decided to try for myself, and I'm wondering. I think she said she got hers off AliExpress. I'm not sure. I don't want to put words in her mouth, but there. Can we see all those now? Pretty much. But I'm wondering if there was some contamination in that set that she got, because I was kind of like expecting to have some really bad smells and to have some problems, but they worked great. So the other Gucai paints are the metallic large pan paints. Those sold out really soon. I think like the day after I posted my review on that, they were sold out. So I don't know if these are going to sell out fast, but at least you have the information on the day that they're going to be on sale. And then if there's something that you think you would enjoy. Otherwise, if you already have the Kuretake Genzai Tambi, they're very similar in use. So if you've got those already and you're not sure if you want these, I would recommend pulling those paints out, painting a few paintings with them, and see what you think. The big difference between the Genzai Tambi and these is that the Genzai Tambi are pans and these are liquid paint, and the Genzai Tambi have a little bit of a sheen if you use them thickly, and these don't really have that sheen when you use them thickly in a painting. Even here where I like kind of layered on, I don't have a sheen. So that's just something that would be the only real big difference, is that the format and the sheen. So I hope you found this helpful. I really enjoyed every single painting I did with these. I recorded that one, and that one. So let me know if you want tutorials on those. I can edit those and put them up. And otherwise, I hope you have a wonderful day. I hope this inspires you to do some painting, if nothing else. Thank you so much for watching, and please give me a thumbs up before you go. That helps my reviews get seen by the people that need to see them. Until next time, happy crafting.